I would now like to call on Professor Ebohon. Before Professor speak, I'm going to go through his bio. Professor Obas John Ebohon is Professor of Sustainability and Environmental Law in the School of Built Environment and Architecture, and Director of the Center for Sustainability and Resilient Communities in London School of South Bank University. His research interests are in energy, sustainability, and development. So Professor is an expert in this field. I'm going to leave him to give his presentation, and I know there will be a lot for everyone to take away. Professor Ebohon.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Ahir. Again, I'm caught in two minds here. Listening to the presentation that everyone is made, I'm tempted to abandon what I've prepared, which was basically establishing the relationship between energy and economic growth for Africa as a whole, and cascading down to looking at the problem of energy in Nigeria. I think the format of the discussion would not allow us to do that. But again, anyone can obtain the presentation from you. I just want to respond to the presentations that have been made today. If I may sort of talk briefly, I think it's about 25, 30, about 30 years ago, not 30, 35 years ago, when that is, having worked at Central Bank of Nigeria, and I left the bank to come to the UK to study. I walked into the lecture hall the very first time. It was a tutorial. And you have to introduce yourself and tell us which country you came from. And the lecturer was very funny. And to break the ice, he would tell us what he knows about your country. So he said, where are you from? I said, I'm John Ebohon from Nigeria. He said, oh, that country that have all the necessary infrastructure and energy sources, but cannot generate electricity for 2 hours at a stretch. So when you finish, make sure that you acquire some skills and competencies in this area, right? And I took that seriously. And focusing, after my first degree in economics, focusing on economic development, and I went to go and read energy and economic development. My PhD was to compare and contrast an energy resourceful economy like Nigeria with Tanzania, that is a net energy importer. And my conclusion was that proximity to natural resources and natural endowment is not a necessary prerequisite, to energy self-sufficiency, but rather is the effective management of what you have that will deliver these resources. Why? Even in some countries today that are not so much rich in energy, you go to those countries, even at the time they take electricity to carry out maintenance, they tell you 7 days in advance, and they tell you exactly when and where, and you are able to prepare for it. The presentation that has been made today, nobody has actually said that Nigeria is the only country along the West African coast that has all the main sources of energy, that is blessed enormously with resource endowment. In terms of solar, as people have said, geothermal energy, Nigeria has a very huge potential of geothermal energy. Wind energy, we are blessed with it. Then, and then thermal, where we could use oil and gas. And indeed, hydro electricity source of energy. We know at the time we are producing, and again, fundamentally, Nigeria is the only country along West Africa that has a deposit of coal. Lignite, dirty fuel as it is, we had coal. And we have used that successfully, okay? Nobody has ever been able to tell me, no one has mentioned it here. Despite the energy infrastructure that Nigeria had, we had 4 oil refineries, for example. Nigeria was building enormous energy generation capacity, especially in the 70s and 80s. I can count the numbers of dams, hydroelectricity dams that Nigeria, had to establish. None of those infrastructure, and this was topped by the Igbin thermal plant. We all know about that thermal plant in Lagos. No one has been able to tell us or tell the world, why is it none of these key infrastructure, energy infrastructure, had been able to operate above 20% capacity utilization ever since they were built? No one. It's not that we don't have the technical capacity. It's not that there's no lack of investment because the infrastructures are there. Is it lack of finance? Not at all. Nigeria was making billions. In the 70s, we were told that Nigeria was paying the civil service wages of so many countries. Okay. Is it lack of management capacity? Skill competencies? Nigerians are managing, energy plants all over the world and delivering successfully. And there are people capable of doing this in Nigeria. Okay? And so what is the problem? This is the question that we need to ask ourselves. It's not a question of lack of resources, lack of finances. No, these are not the real challenges. The real challenge you have in Nigeria led me to refuse a consultancy put to me by the World Bank to ask me to lead a research team to look at the energy, problems in Nigeria. And they gave me a brief, and I told them to go and read my thesis, or go and read some of my publications in the leading journal of energy policy. You put my name there, you see a lot of work, including, ways of bringing innovation into energy delivery. I said, these are all done. It's not the issue. And as somebody has actually mentioned earlier on, I think it's the first speaker, Nigeria has the best, when you talk about policy, when you talk about strategy, Nigeria has the best of these things written. But nothing seems to be able to come off the drawing board. I told the World Bank that the problem we have in Nigeria is what I have called the political economy of energy, producing and generation and supply. I said, if you want us to look at it from that perspective, of course, we are. And this is the point I want to make. Most of these multilateral and unilateral institutions, when people talk about foreign direct investment, they are not coming because they want you to necessarily develop, or they see you wanting to climb up whatever social ladder you are. Of course, they will put that in front. They are there for business. They are there for business. They're not going to invest in the sector that you want them to invest in. In fact, 90% of resources, foreign direct investment that have gone into energy across Africa have not gone in for producing energy to meet lower demand, national demand. And in fact, as our last presenter, my friend, he made my point by saying that they provide these services, for the lower end, of society to be able to catch up and improve their businesses. those huge sums of money that are coming into Africa, especially in the energy sector, is to build the infrastructure that will enable them, produce energy resources for export, not for domestic use. Because as you are told, as our last speaker said, he said the wages are too low, So it's not just in the energy sector, in every sector. That was what structural adjustment was made, to achieve. And then the leaders sometimes, they have no scope. And they just have to do as they are told, which is why I told the World Bank, the issue is not the problems that you are raising. It is whether you or the world really want Africa, to develop. You are going to an orphanage. You're not going to give them food or tell them, according to a Chinese proverb, it says, don't give fish, but tell people, show people how to fish. All right? And so this is why I said, so let's come back to the energy infrastructure, where I said domestically is the political economy of energy. All right? About 75 to 80% of all the hydroelectricity dams that were developed in 1970s, as Nigerian economy were growing, guess what? They were allocated, not based on a very sound environmental, if you like, technical studies and initiative, but they were politically influenced. 75% of these dams were built on seasonal river. So when there is no water, no electricity. All right? Doesn't matter if you actually cited this infrastructure in any part of Nigeria where it can generate electricity, and all that you have to do is find a way of taking this electricity to where they are needed. All right? Igbin thermal plant was built to use the energy, to use heavy fuel, which they know we don't produce. We have to import. We are flaring 95% of our natural gas. A country that flares, a huge proportion of gas. What do you need to generate electricity? Okay? And so it comes down to even the utilities that we have, the little that we have on ground. Would it be possible for somebody to bring in Professor Ebohon today or Victor Dis, who may have the knowledge and capacity to manage those? No. The people that are selected to manage this infrastructure are done on political basis. So they run this industry down. Okay? So that is where the rent-seeking behavior develops. I give you as an example. I was in Nigeria then. I could mention this. I can't remember his name now. He was the deputy inspector, divisional inspector of police. They just moved him from some part of Nigeria to Warri. So he belonged to a church that one of my cousins, and I was in Nigeria at the time. He could not believe it, that, electricity goes on and off, goes on and off. So what did he do? He led a battalion of mobile policemen. They went to Warri, where they generate the electricity subdivision there. And he got the managing director there, everybody there, to do frog jump for almost, 15 hours. They were there. He really drilled them. Do you know, for 3 months, there was not one single blackout. But then what happened? He was removed from his position. He was redeployed. Out of frustration and out of anger, he left. You understand? He went and, went back to school. He ended up being a chief judge or whatever, in Rivers State. All right. And so any other initiative that have been brought in, that have been tried and tested in other parts of the world, you bring it to Nigeria, within 2-3 days, it's completely obliterated. All right. Can anybody tell me why we have 4 oil refineries? One of them, Kaduna Refinery, we all know, was built to also use heavy oil that Nigeria don't produce. When we are renowned for having premium, fuel with low sulfur. Was that strategic? What was that about? You understand? And so this is why people that are brought in to come and look at these issues, you should be speaking truth to power. And may I say to our brother pioneering solar energy, when I did my PhD studies, 1975, the first Enugu hotel was completely built on solar. It was pure government policy then that alternative sources of energy should not be encouraged. And so we can go on and look at these issues, because these are very, very important, so that we can understand, what the real issues are when we are talking about solutions. They advised us that PPP. If you listen to every African leader now, you just mention anything, PPP. What do they understand by PPP? The way I understand PPP, public-private partnership. Where is the private? The private is not a businessman coming from America, coming from Russia, coming from all these places. Of course, that is what they want it to be. The benefit of that private there, is supposed to capture capital flight from Africa. The whole idea is, if all those people that owns the midst of production in Africa were to put their money in there, they would think twice about stealing from themselves. Now, this whole the idea of capital, if you talk to any African leader now, they put their hands between their legs. The first thing they open their public-private partnership. And they are waiting for God to bring the private capital from wherever to come up. No, that is not the idea. If you don't have a private capital base, some of these countries don't even have functional capital market. All right? The capital market we have in Nigeria, has anyone been able to tell me why interest rate is double digit in Nigeria, even where interest rate is negative in other parts of the world? Why? Because the huge multinational companies, they participate in Nigerian foreign exchange market. Who will tell me a businessman that is going to be able to compete against Share or Mobi? So what do? They raid the local capital market, they invest, and then from the proceeds that come in, they give them little bit and they are happy. And that is the birth of the so-called new generation bank. What we need to do is to have leaders who are determined to provide basic infrastructure for their citizens, know how these things are done, get those who can help them, and then begin to put Africa, on a trajectory, right? And then my friend talked about tariffs. When they talk about these things, I get frightened. And I want to correct the impression here. Nigerians will pay any amount if they get services. If they get services, Nigeria will pay. We have the history. All right? Now, you heard them talk about discos, some kind of fanciful name for all these so-called privatized electricity companies. You tell me why you should privatize electricity companies, and you have each of them to have different meters, different specifications, etc., etc. The basic common sense of economics of scale tells you, for a country like Nigeria, if you are able to establish 4 or 5 and give them common whatever, as you have the European Union, they have a common standard. All you have to ask them to do is produce to this common standard. There would have been no shortage of metering. So what are they doing, these guys? All right. And this is the danger of handling a private monopoly. You know, the danger of handling public monopoly into the hands of private monopolists. If you in a country like Nigeria or Africa, where you have individuals far more powerful than institutions, what have they done? They refuse to produce because they know they can always hike up prices. I have a home in Nigeria. My mother was there, 105. I was paying electricity bill with no electricity supply. What was the threat? They tell you if you don't pay, they will come and take your meter. Who do you go and cry to? Nobody. All right? Nigeria is the only country in the world where you have people you're walking on the street, you carry 5 mobile phones. Why? Have you ever seen it anywhere else? Why? Because once you buy this recharge card from these people, there is no obligation. Nobody holds them. No accountability to make sure that they deliver, that you are able to use those services and so on and so forth. Right? So you have this kind of convolution where there is no difference between regulatory body and providers. When I investigated this, I found out that mobile companies in Nigeria, they provide free airways to senators and all this, whatever. These are the people that will investigate you. You know, and so it is not that we haven't got capacity, we haven't got the finances, we haven't got the management competencies. It is a question of the political economy of energy. And that's where I want to leave it.
Thank you, Professor.